From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Battling back from drought.
We've got lots of drought issues across the country yet.
One state is seeing some improvements.
This is an important one.
A stroke of a pen may change the direction for ag exports in this country. How new shipping legislation could be a big benefit. And portions of the country continue to swelter under extreme heat.
It's often referred to as a ring of fire.
Why this may not be a short-term issue right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The heat wave continues across the heartland and further south, and it could be a sign of things to come. Right now, weather officials are watching what some call a death ridge, and it's just as dangerous as it sounds. It's a very significant ridge of high pressure developing first across the southwestern U.S. last week. Over the weekend, it spread to Texas and then the Great Plains, and that extreme heat is moving into the southeast. There have also been triple-digit temperatures across much of the country over the past several days. USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says the ridge is alarming as it's expected to continue throughout the summer months. And depending on how that ridge shifts, it could spell problems for more farmers.
It is moving around from place to place. We saw it become established over the desert Southwest. It's made a run across the Great Plains, now more recently into the Midwest, the Mid-South, and even the Southeast, with early triple-digit heat. That in fact is maybe a bit of a warning sign, because here we have a lot of the minor corn areas of the South, from say Texas to the Carolinas, getting hit with triple-digit heat when corn is moving into reproduction. We've got a lot of corn silking across the South. That's not going to have a big impact on the national number, but for these regional and state producers, it's a big deal to see temperatures like 102, 103 degrees when corn is silking. That is going to have an impact on that crop.
But he notes the ridge of high pressure does create a ring of fire around the edge. That's what caused severe thunderstorms that brought hail to Kansas and Nebraska this week. Now, the ring of fire is also to blame for the historic flooding at Yellowstone. With the official start of summer just a few days away, scientists say a mega drought across the western U.S. could get even worse. As Mike Valerio explains, some farmers already have had their water sources cut off, and the drought is forcing more fields to be fallow.
As scarce water showers shades of gold across browning fields, the predictions are dire.
It's scary to think that we may not be able to do this because we don't have the water to do it.
Richard Bianchi is a fourth-generation farmer here in Hollister, California. His fields, farm, and family are now facing the U.S. megadrought, which scientists say is the worst western dry spell in 1,200 years. More than 90% of the West is in a drought, and Bianchi's most reliable water source is now shut off.
So to be clear, Richard, you're getting no water, 0% from your best water source.
Correct.
What are the biggest impacts? How would you explain that to somebody outside of Hollister?
It's limiting the amount of ground that we can farm. It's limiting the amount of the intensity that we can farm.
Bianchi has no choice but to pump lower quality groundwater into his fields, and he's not sure how long that'll last. Less water limits the crops he can grow, and he tells us that reduces our choices at the grocery store. Economists say less supply pushes prices even higher, more pain on top of sky-high inflation. The drought leaves fields fallow, and scientists say fuels historic infernos.
Climate science connects deepening droughts with dried up earth all around us to longer, more severe wildfire seasons. In fact, the fires in New Mexico started much earlier this year than in years past, and right now, it's only spring.
Federal officials tell us the nightmare is already here. Up to 3/4 of Northern California's farming fields could stay fallow, growing nothing this summer. For Bianchi, whether there's a future for a fifth generation of his family's farmers is now in doubt.
Are we going to have water in 2-3 years out of our aquifer? Nobody could say that.
In Hollister, California, I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
Dangerously hot and humid conditions persist from the upper Midwest to the southeast, but a little break may be on the way. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us with an update. Matt.
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. We're going to have a little bit of a break as we head towards the weekend in parts of the northern Great Lakes and into the Northeast, but then we're going to get that heat right back in full force for next week. Now, if you take a look at the temperatures this morning, it's going to be warm and muggy from parts of Texas all the way up through the Great Lakes and towards the southeast. But then if we go towards this afternoon, look at these temperatures, how they increase so rapidly into the afternoon. We're going to be looking at triple digits again for parts of Texas, parts of Kansas and Oklahoma, all the way down to Memphis as well. And take a look at this. Feels like temperatures above 100 degrees for a good portion of the eastern half of the United States. So very, very warm, very humid as this heat wave continues across the eastern United States. And it looks like a second one could be on the way for next week, a big ridge building into Sunday. And this might stick around as we head through at least Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. That's something we'll kind of keep an eye on there. But here's a look at Memphis, Tennessee, where today we could break a record. You can see the numbers there in red, which are in jeopardy of being records broken. And then you see the 100 degrees on Friday. That could tie a record set way back in the 1800s. And then Saturday, Sunday, back into the 90s, but still extremely warm and humid there in West Tennessee. And the heat appears to be good for something. Jared McDaniel reporting a temperature of 109 degrees, saying it was perfect hay drying weather in Texhoma, Oklahoma. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
All eyes were on the Federal Reserve Wednesday as it met to decide how best to battle surging inflation. The Fed announcing it's raising its key interest rate by 3/4 of a point. That's the largest hike in nearly 3 decades. It's also a sign of more large rate increases to come that could raise the risk of a recession. Now, the move will increase its benchmark short-term rate, which impacts many consumers and business loans, to a range of 1.5% to 1.75%. One place Americans are really feeling the pressure of inflation is at the gas pump. Now, President Biden is sending a letter to 7 oil refining companies in an attempt to ease prices. Now, in the letter, the president called for, quote, immediate actions toward boosting supply. Now, he added a major increase in refinery profit margins are hindering the actions the White House has taken to address the higher cost of fuel. Mr. Biden also said the federal government may be used to bolster refinery capacity and output. The Senate's version of the bipartisan Ocean Shipping Reform Act overwhelmingly passed in the House this week. AgDay national reporter Michelle Rook is here to talk about why it's so important to agriculture.
Clinton, the legislation is on its way to the president for his signature, and it's being touted as the first major update to federal regulations for the global ocean shipping industry in over 2 decades. It comes after surging consumer demand for retail goods throughout the COVID-19 pandemic overwhelmed U.S. ports and supply chains. The bill gives the Federal Maritime Commission, the federal agency responsible for regulation of international ocean shipping, greater authority to regulate ocean carrier practices to help U.S. exporters with the backlog they've seen the last several months in ag shipping. This is key for perishable products like produce, dairy, and meat.
You know, one of the strengths of the U.S. agricultural industry is the ability to ship chilled beef and chilled pork weekly and deliver weekly, whether it's to Japan, Korea, China, to Central America, etc. And today, we're not a reliable weekly supplier. Nobody is because of the supply chain issues.
The legislation would outlaw ocean carriers leaving U.S. ports with empty containers, a pandemic-era development that has hurt U.S. ag exporters. Pro Farmers Jim Wiesmeyer says this is critical.
But there are very needed things in there with those empty carriers. And see, this is where we like to connect dots. That's a significant part of the backup of some of the containers in the cotton industry that I heard about for the last few days, and other commodities. So this is an important one.
He says President Biden has indicated he's eager to sign the bill into law after firing shots at the shippers for gouging on his trip to Los Angeles last week. Now, it's also hoped the bill will help lower record high freight rates that have increased the cost of all goods. Plus, limited trade has made it more difficult to import supplies like fertilizer, which has also fed inflation. Now, although the U.S. is coming off a record year of ag exports, the American Farm Bureau estimates agriculture lost out on more than $25 billion of ag export business due to shipping issues.
So what does the Federal Reserve's decision on interest rates mean for commodity markets? We'll discuss that next, coming up in analysis. And later, a well-known tractor producer celebrates a milestone in the country.
Find farm equipment on Machinery Pete's June 21st online auction. No reserve, no buyer fees. Start bidding now at auctions.machinerypete.com.
Construction and agriculture company Caterpillar says it's moving its headquarters to Texas. The longtime Deerfield, Illinois resident saying the move is in the best strategic interest of the company. Now, the company will begin transitioning its headquarters to the city of Irving this year. Markets were mixed ahead of the Fed interest rate announcement. AgDay national reporter Michelle Rook has more on how the markets reacted here at midweek.
Thanks, Clinton. Joining us with market analysis, Alan Brugler with Brugler Marketing. And Alan, the Fed announcing 75 basis point increase in rates and kind of baked in, you think?
Yeah, we originally had been thinking 50 basis points. Then the talk the last couple of days was 75 or even 100. They ended up going with 75. So that, I think that's the market consensus right ahead of the announcement. So you had an initial bounce up, then you had a drop, and eventually the stock market decided it was not good. They started to sell off more consistently after the announcement came out.
So what do you think longer term? The Fed signaling that they want to get inflation down to 2%. What's it going to take to get there?
Well, if you're at 8 right now, it's going to take several more rate hikes. I talked to a former Fed governor 2 weeks ago, and he was of the opinion they would actually have to force a recession because they really can't do anything to influence the crude oil or some of the other main drivers. So all they can do is try and slow down demand, and that's by continuing the rate hikes. The problem with this one is a 75-point hike still leaves you with very, very negative real interest rates, and it's not really providing that much of a break on the economy.
It does impact the equities sector, which impacts money flow, which impacts the commodities sector. So that's going to stick around for a while, you think?
Yeah, it's going to be an influence for a while. They've said they want their target rate to be 3.4% by the end. I think that was by the end of 2022. But what we see in commodities, of course, is as long as you have the inflation, if the rate hikes aren't killing it, you've got extra money that's coming out of the equity sector that's coming into commodities because that's where you go when there's inflation. Commodities tend to outperform equities in a high inflation environment.
All right. Well, thanks for your analysis. And Alan Brugler joining us here with market analysis from Brugler Marketing. You can catch our full discussion on agweb.com. More Ag Day coming up.
To talk to Alan about his ag market professional services, call Brugler Marketing and Management at 402-697-3623 or visit his website, www.bruglermarketing.com.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here, looking at the jet stream here on a Thursday, and well, you can tell doesn't seem like there's a lot of movement in that ridge.
No, and the jet stream's well to the north. The heat, the humidity, it's been here for the last few days, and unfortunately it's going to be sticking around as we head through much of next week. And that ridge again all the way into the east, and you can really see that, the darker colors of red here in the southeast, but then all the way up into parts of New England, and a secondary ridge beginning to build back into the west. And as we head through time towards the weekend, you can see kind of how this ridge moves. A bigger ridge starting to fill in through the middle part of the country. That will give some places near the Great Lakes over into the mid-Atlantic and northeast a little bit of a break from the heat and humidity, but it's going to be right back on right through the center of the country, and it's going to stay unsettled and a little bit cooler out in the Pacific Northwest as well. And notice how that ridge moves again eastward. We're going to be looking at high temperatures back into the 80s and 90s all the way up into the upper Midwest and Great Lakes, even as we head into Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe even Thursday of next week. Meanwhile, again, staying cooler and unsettled there in the Pacific Northwest, but the heat's not going anywhere as we head towards the end of the month. It's still looking very warm and very humid across much of the lower 48. And here's a look at the temperatures this afternoon. A lot of triple digits on the map, all the way from St. Louis, Cincinnati, down towards the Gulf Coast and even southern Texas as well. 112 back in Phoenix, super hot back there, but it's a dry heat back in the southwest. Lots of humidity from Texas on to the east, and that's what's keeping those low temperatures in the 60s and 70s. And then even as we head into tomorrow afternoon, still seeing triple-digit heat for much of the south and east. There is a threat for a couple of storms there on the northern side of that ridge. Just a few could be possible with some heavier rain, gusty winds, and even some small hail, and the mid-Atlantic included in that as well. Here's a look at the map here, and as we send this cold front and warm front eastward, the heat, humidity staying into the south, just a few chances for some showers and storms right through the middle part of the country. Other than that, we're staying dry under sunny skies and keeping it very hot and very humid across most of the country. Again, just a few chances for rain over the next couple of days, some of those being in places that we really, really need them. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. New Lexington, Ohio, lots of sunshine with an isolated storm, a high of 93 degrees. 100 degrees the temperature in Waco, Texas. It'll be sunny and hot. In Modesto, California, mostly sunny and a high near 87 degrees.
Pasture and range conditions improved in some drought-stressed areas. We'll take a look coming up next. And later, the 1 millionth Massey Ferguson tractor rolls through the factory in France. We'll mark the milestone in the country.
It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at unitedporkamericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th. Agribusiness Today is brought to you exclusively by CHS, your partner in the field providing precision agriculture solutions to farmers across the country.
Some good news for Oklahoma. Pasture and range conditions have improved somewhat. Livestock marketing expert Darrell Peel of Oklahoma State University says the state has seen considerable rain over the past few weeks. That has improved pasture conditions, which has led to a jump in the cash feeder cattle market. But he says that doesn't mean we're out of the woods just yet when it comes to drought.
Well, obviously at the margin we've seen some improvement in places like Oklahoma and a few other places, but in general we have very widespread drought conditions still across the country. Pasture and range conditions nationally are still at the worst for this time of year that they've ever been. So we've got lots of drought issues across the country yet.
Peel says beef cow slaughter has been running 15% above year-ago levels. He predicts we could see a record level of net culling for the year, leaving the beef cow herd down 3 to 4%. While the White House mulls over possibly erasing some tariffs with China, tariffs are coming off with other trading partners. South Korea is the latest country to suspend import duties on pork and other food items in an effort to combat inflation. It joins Mexico, the Philippines, Taiwan, Vietnam, and Brazil in reducing or eliminating tariffs on certain foods. And while the tariff reductions may benefit global competitors more than the U.S. red meat, the U.S. Meat Export Federation says the overall trend is positive.
Some of our global customers have higher rates of inflation than us. So now is the time to try to reduce that impact. And one way to do it is to offset or reduce or eliminate existing inbound tariffs.
Hallstrom says if the U.S. is on a level playing field, duty-wise or better, U.S. meat can compete with anyone in the world. A tractor company marks a major milestone, the 1 millionth Massey, next in the country. One well-known tractor manufacturer is celebrating a milestone. It has built its 1 millionth tractor. Employees and managers at the Massey Ferguson plant in France were on hand to celebrate as the tractor rolled off the line. Now it's an MF8S 305 Dyna VT, and it already has an owner, a crop farmer in a village in Brittany, France. He's adding it to his Massey Ferguson fleet that already includes 4 tractors, 3 combines, and 2 large balers. Now, officials report the factory can produce and ship up to 100 tractors daily to more than 70 countries. Massey Ferguson has been manufacturing tractors in Beauvais, France since 1960. Congratulations. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.